As you guys know, UFC 318 is right around the corner, and this card will be taking place in New Orleans, Louisiana, the same state that Dustin Poirier is from. As you guys know, UFC 318 is marketed as Dustin Poirier's final retirement fight, and the whole card is just dedicated to Dustin Poirier. Now, when we actually analyze the quality of the card, I think the pay-per-view main card is pretty bad. I would give it like a 5 out of 10. But the card overall, I think it has some really good matchups and some really underrated fights in the prelims, early prelims, and even some spots in the main card. So overall, I would give the card like a 6 out of 10, the overall card, and probably the main card like a 5 out of 10. It's definitely not a super strong card, but it's definitely not like a UFC 312 level card or a UFC 315 level card. It has some redeeming qualities. But anyways, in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions, and I'm going to be breaking down every single fight that will be happening on this card. So without further ado, let's get straight into my prediction video. So opening up the card in the women's flyweight division, we have Judice versus Nicole Kalahari. And I'm going to be picking Judice to win by a decision. I think that Judice, she just has the superior volume in her striking, and she has that ability to apply pressure all 3 rounds. I think that she can easily control the pace of this fight and just win a nice clean 29-28 decision, 30-27 decision, just by finding her rhythm throughout the whole fight. I think that Nicole Kalahari, she might find some success in some moments, but I think that Judice's cardio, her pace, and her output is definitely going to get the judges' nod in the scorecards. Now, the next fight in the card in the welterweight division, we have Adam Fugit versus Islam Dulatov. And I'm going to be picking Islam Dulatov to win this fight by a knockout. I think that Islam Dulatov, he has a lot of pressure in those early rounds. I think that he's going to definitely get a knockout in the first round. And Islam Dulatov, he's definitely the more powerful fighter in this matchup. I think that power, he can leverage that to get the more damaging shots of the entire fight, get the bigger moments, get the bigger reactions out of Adam Fugit. So I'm going to be picking Islam Dulatov to knock out Adam Fugit in like the first or second round. Next up in the middleweight division, we have Bruno Ferrer versus Jackson McVey. And I'm going to be picking Bruno Ferrer to win this fight by a knockout. I think that this is honestly kind of a big step down in competition for Bruno Ferrer. We've seen Jackson McVey, he's been floating around in certain UFC cards. He hasn't fought in the UFC yet, but the UFC, they were kind of trying to plug him as a replacement fighter for some fights that were happening recently. And now he actually has a fight signed against Bruno Ferrer. And I think Bruno Ferrer, he's going to knock him out. Bruno Ferrer, he's almost close to that rank section in the middleweight division. And Jackson McVey, I believe he fights out of the LFA or some other MMA promotion that's definitely not the UFC. And I just think that Bruno Ferrer, he's faced way tougher competition. He's coming off of a huge, it was a knockout win? No, it was a huge submission win against Armen Petrosyan. And I think that Jackson McVey, he hasn't fought anyone near the competition of a Armen Petrosyan. So I think Bruno Ferrer, he's going to knock out Jackson McVey in the first or second round. I can see Bruno Ferrer winning by a ground and pound stoppage, or I can even see a submission on the ground. Definitely just softening him up with ground and pound, letting him expose his neck or getting an arm triangle submission. But I'm going to go with a ground and pound TKO victory for Bruno Ferrer. Next up on the card in the light heavyweight division, we have Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnow. And I'm going to be picking Jimmy Crute to win this by a decision. I think that Jimmy Crute, he can win this by using his wrestling and his clinch control to just neutralize the striking of Marcin Prachnow. Marcin Prachnow, he is a very tricky striker. He can throw up strikes in very awkward situations on the feet. And I think that Jimmy Crute, he needs to definitely smother that type of striking in the clinch and mix up the takedowns, just grind Marcin Prachnow against the cage and just wear him down. I think that Marcin Prachnow, he's definitely the better striker in this matchup. So he could definitely end up TKOing Jimmy Crute. But I think Jimmy Crute, if he just avoids wild exchanges, stick to a specific game plan, he can definitely win this fight by grinding out a dominant wrestling masterclass and a clinch control masterclass and winning a decision. Next up in the heavyweight division, we have Ryan Spann versus Lucas Berseski. And I think that Ryan Spann, he's going to win this by a TKO. This is kind of a risky pick. Ryan Spann, he's not a very reliable fighter when it comes to making a solid prediction on him. But I think that Ryan Spann, he has the power in his hands to knock out a lower level heavyweight like a Lucas Berseski. I think that Ryan Spann, he can easily set up a right hand counter, and I could also see a ground and pound stoppage for Ryan Spann as well. Next fight on the card in the welterweight division, we have Francisco Prado versus Nicole Veritanikov, and I'm going to be picking Francisco Prado to win by a decision. I think that Francisco, he's going to have so much pressure in this matchup and so much volume in his striking. I don't think that Veritanikov is going to be able to keep up on the back foot. He also mixes in his level changes as well, which is another factor that Veritanikov is going to have to worry about in this matchup. Francisco, he has the better cardio in my opinion, and he can use that pressure to just push a higher pace in this matchup. I think that he's going to be able to break Veritanikov in this matchup. I think that Veritanikov is going to fade in the later rounds. And I think that his pressure is just going to win him this fight. His volume in his striking and his wrestling is going to win him this fight. So I just see him just winning a easy 30-27 decision, maybe a 29-28 if things get a little bit rough for him. But yeah, I see Francisco Prado winning by a decision. Next fight in this matchup, we have Ataba Gatier versus Robert Valentine. And I did a whole breaking down Ataba Gatier's entire MMA career. I did a deep dive analyzing his potential in the UFC. And if you guys watched that video, I already provided you guys with an early prediction on this matchup. And I think that Ataba Gatier is going to win by another explosive knockout in the first round. Robert Valentine, he's in the lower levels of the middleweight rankings, and Ataba Gatier, he's just a very young and hungry UFC prospect. He has the power advantage. He has the striking efficiency. He's going to be more athletic in this matchup. He's going to be able to definitely shuck off any takedown attempts of Robert Valentine. And Robert Valentine, like I mentioned in the video that I made, even if he does try and neutralize the striking with a wrestling-centric game plan or a grappling-centric game plan, he's not going to have any success in the grappling. Ataba Gatier, he's very explosive. He has a high-level grappling defense. He's going to be able to shuck off the takedowns. And I think Ataba Gatier is going to be going into this matchup with a lot of confidence. He has the momentum of being a huge prospect on his side. And I think that this is a huge stylistic mismatch for Robert Valentine. And I think that Ataba Gatier is going to win by a nasty, brutal first-round KO. Next up in the bantamweight division, we have Phillips versus Vinicius Olivera. And I'm going to be picking Vinicius Olivera to win by a decision. I think that Vinicius Olivera, he can definitely keep up with the speed of Phillips and maintain a disciplined and steady pace. Phillips, yeah, he's a very fast fighter. And I think that Vinicius Olivera, he can also utilize his counter-striking in this matchup. Phillips, he does overextend in some exchanges on the feet. I think Vinicius Olivera, he's a very technical bantamweight, and he's going to be able to capitalize on those overextensions by Phillips. And let's not forget about Vinicius Olivera's leg kicks. He's going to be able to mix in the leg kicks as well. And that's just going to provide him with multiple ways to just break down Phillips and win this matchup by a decision. Next up in the middleweight division, headlining the prelims of UFC 318 is Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. And I'm going to be picking Brendan Allen to win by a decision. I think that Brendan Allen, he has very weird kind of striking, but I think it's going to be very effective in this matchup. Brendan Allen is mostly a grappler. I think his grappling is going to be a really effective tool in this matchup as well. And I think that he can definitely just keep Marvin Vettori at range with just his kicks and his jabs. And if Brendan Allen can just take this fight to the clinch, take it to the ground, and just out-grapple Marvin Vettori, he can just neutralize that strength advantage that Vettori naturally has against most of his opponents. So I think that he'll definitely land more significant strikes, out grapple, out position Marvin Vettori in this matchup, and I can see him winning a nice 30-27 decision and putting him back on track towards that middleweight title. Brendan Allen, he's kind of been on a slump in his career. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, if I'm not mistaken, and I think this is definitely a good bounce back fight to get him back on that trajectory up the middleweight rankings. Next up, opening up the main card, we have a fight in the lightweight division between Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. And I think I'm going to be picking Daniel Zellhuber to win this fight by knockout. I just think that Michael Johnson, he's a very old fighter for the lightweight division. I think he's pushing like 40. And Daniel Zellhuber, he's going to have that youth and power advantage on the feet. I think that Zellhuber, he has the advantage in finishing this fight. And let's not forget the physical advantages of Daniel Zellhuber as well. He's 6'1" with a 77-inch reach in the lightweight division. That's absolutely just like huge stats to be having in that light of a weight class. I think that Daniel Zellhuber will just be able to just outstrike Michael Johnson in the early rounds. And when Michael Johnson like overextends, tries to rush him with a combination, I can see Daniel Zellhuber putting him away in like the middle of the second round. Next up in the featherweight division, we have Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. And I'm going to be picking Dan Ige to win this by a decision. Patricio Pitbull is from Bellator, if you guys don't already know that, and he already fought Yair Rodriguez. And in that fight, he didn't really show any type of like high-level offense to work off against UFC competition. I think that Dan Ige, he's definitely a step down in competition compared to Yair Rodriguez. But Dan Ige, he has a lot of good attributes that can counter a fighter like Patricio Pitbull. He has the size and reach advantage in this fight, and he has some momentum after getting his win against Sean Woodson, who was a very difficult stylistic opponent on paper for Dan Ige, and he ended up getting that TKO victory against a very tough opponent. So I just see Dan Ige outstriking Patricio Pitbull, maybe hurting him in some moments. I don't really see this fight going to the ground. Dan Ige, he's mostly a striker, although he has some really good wrestling. But I think that Dan Ige is just going to keep the fight on the feet where he's comfortable, outstrike Patricio Pitbull, hurt him in some moments, and I can see him winning a dominant decision victory. Now, next up, the feature fight in the welterweight division, we have Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez, and I'm going to be picking Kevin Holland to win this fight by a submission. Kevin Holland, he's a very difficult opponent for the unranked welterweights. His build and his stature is just very difficult to deal with. He has that 81-inch reach, which is huge for the welterweight division, and I think that reach is going to play a huge role in this matchup as well. D-Rod, he's a striker. Kevin Holland, he's also mainly a striker. He also has some grappling, which I think that's going to be the way that he's going to end this fight. I see him cracking D-Rod in this matchup and just submitting him, kind of like what he did to Vicente Luque. I can either see a ground and pound TKO or a rear naked choke submission, but I just see Kevin Holland cracking D-Rod on the feet, and I can see him mixing up a submission to end the fight. Now for the co-main event, we have Paulo Costa versus Roman Kapalof, and I'm going to be picking Roman Kapalof to win this matchup by a decision. I made a whole video detailing why I think that Roman Kapalof is going to absolutely like light up Paulo Costa on the feet. Paulo Costa is not that exceptional of a fighter in the striking. He has decent power for the division, but he doesn't really have any like special characteristics. Roman Kapalof, on the other hand, he's a elite kickboxer, elite sambo. He has the grappling to lean back on, and I see Roman Kapalof piecing up Paulo Costa and just brutalizing him for 3 rounds. So if you guys want to see a more detailed breakdown on this matchup, definitely check out that video I released like a couple weeks ago. And now let's move on to the main event, which is going to be between Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier. And I'm going to be picking Max Holloway to win this fight by a decision. I think that Max Holloway, we all know that he has the relentless volume that builds over the course of the fight. I think that Max Holloway, he's improved his defense and he has great pacing over 5 rounds. Even though he got knocked out against Ilia Topuria, we all know that Ilia Topuria, he's just a once-in-a-lifetime type of athlete. Like, he has unbelievable power, but I don't think that Max Holloway is going to be like extremely affected by that loss. I think that Dustin Poirier, he's definitely not carrying the same power as Ilia Topuria, and Max Holloway I think that he's still going to have a really, really good chin in this matchup. So I think that Max Holloway is going to just outpace and just outstrike Dustin Poirier in the boxing. Dustin Poirier, he's more of a counter striker in the boxing. He doesn't really throw that much volume throughout the fight. But I think that Max Holloway, he's definitely going to be able to outpoint Dustin Poirier, mixing those teep kicks he's been adding to his arsenal as well. And let's not forget, Max Holloway, he's going to have the better cardio. Dustin Poirier, he's getting ready for retirement. He's not going to be at the absolute prime of his MMA career like he was when he fought Max Holloway the first 2 times. Well, he wasn't in his prime the first time he fought Max Holloway, but the second time, he was definitely in his prime. He's not going to be that same Dustin Poirier. He's going to be a little bit more slower, a little bit more weathered. He's been through some wars since he last beat Max Holloway. And I think that Max Holloway, he's the younger fighter. He's going to have more drive to succeed in this new weight class. As you guys know, Max Holloway, he's a former featherweight. He's moving up to the lightweight division. And this is going to be his lightweight debut since he's totally took featherweight out of the equation. And we saw him knock out Justin Gaethje at 300. And I just think that Max Holloway, he made some major improvements in his game. Lately, he's been adding some power in his shots as well. That's what got him that Justin Gaethje knockout. He knocked out Korean Zombie as well before that. And I think that Ilia Topuria, he forced Max Holloway to evolve. Max Holloway, he trained like crazy for that fight. And even though he lost against Ilia Topuria, he's definitely was the best looking fighter against Ilia Topuria between Volkanovski, Olivera, and himself. He definitely looked the best between those 3 fights. And he gave Topuria the toughest challenge. So I think that Max Holloway, he's going to rebound from this loss against Ilia Topuria, make a statement win against Dustin Poirier. And I don't think he should fight for the title next after this, but I think that Max Holloway, he's definitely going to remain a staple in the lightweight division and remain a top contender. He was always an option for a title fight in any division he goes to. So that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. As usual, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.